Welcome to another episode of Culture Pulse, everyone. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Paula Maron. What was the job where you remember the most throughout your career?
Brazilian professionals can bring a unique blend of adaptability, resilience, and relationship building skills. If anyone wants to hire great talents, you can count on People Partner.
Welcome to another episode of Culture Pulse, everyone. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Paula Maron, COO at People Partner. Paula's journey in HR is filled with inspiring experiences, from building and scaling teams to bridging the gap between Brazilian talent and US companies. She's navigated the world of in-house HR and now leads recruitment and culture development on a global scale. Today, we'll chat about Paula's journey in HR, the unique aspects of Brazilian workplace culture, and what it takes to help international teams thrive. Since there are so many companies in our industry currently entering the Brazilian market, I'm very excited to learn from Paula's insights. So, yeah, let's get started. How are you feeling today?
Hi, Joanna. Thank you very much for this opportunity to be here
Of
talking with
course.
you, with everybody who is listening to us. Thank you. I feel happy and excited about our conversation, and I think it would be very great to learn more with you and share some knowledge of my career in Brazilian market with you all.
Yes, absolutely. Like I just mentioned, we are working with many companies that operate in Brazilian market, entering the Brazilian market, US companies that also have teams in Brazil. So I think there might be potentially some very interested listeners on the podcast on this episode. So for those who don't know you, could you tell us a little bit more about you, about your journey, what's your role right now and what do you do basically?
Sure. I'm Paula. I live in São Paulo, Brazil, where I moved after I graduated in forest engineering in Federal University of Viçosa. Besides my engineering graduation, I've built all my career in HR since I graduated almost 7 years ago. I moved here to São Paulo to work as a recruiter at Stone, a Brazilian payments company. It was my first job, and I stayed there a few months as a recruiter for the whole company, and a few months before that I assumed another project such as the onboarding process of the company's training process, and I stayed there for almost 3 years in these three roles. After that, I went to Lalamove, an Asian log tech that was starting the operation here in Brazil. I wanted to have a more generalistic role in HR, so I went there to be an HR VP of some back office teams, and I assumed this role, and I did a lot of recruitment too, but also employer branding, internal communication, a lot of cultural projects, and I stayed there for 1 year and a little more than 1 year. And when I received the challenge of being head of people at Stark Bank, and I was the first person hired for the HR at Stark Bank, and I built all the HR from zero to where it was now. So I hired a lot of people. I built process like onboarding, retention process, people development, leadership development programs, all the process the HR can have. I built there. It was a very great, very good opportunity. And after almost 2 years, 1 year and a half, I left there for my sabbatical time. I spent a few months traveling and studying. And after this period, I accepted the invitation from Natalia, my partner today, to be a head of operations at People Partner. Today, I'm here at People Partner. We are an HR as a service company that help our clients to hiring the right talents, designing scalable process, develop people from all kind of seniority. So our main service are headhunter, creating HR process in general, training and development projects, designing organization culture, compensation benefits, and operation efficiency for HR for companies in Brazil and US.
Exactly. So that was kind of like my next question, just to clarify that. Where are your clients? So, from what I understood from our previous conversations, you support U.S. companies with Brazilian talent. Is that correct?
Yes, we have clients in US that hire Brazilian here in Brazil and Brazilians in the US.
Yes, okay. Obviously, you had already in those 7 years quite of a journey in HR, and you worked both in-house, and you are now leading the operations and all the recruitment efforts at People Partner. So you have kind of similar experience to mine. I also started in-house and then moved to the other side of the fence. So could you maybe share like how your experience so far has shaped your understanding of like organizational culture and its role in recruitment? I mean, in your previous position, you kind of created the processes from scratch and have done everything on your own pretty much. And now you're helping other businesses do a similar thing. So yeah, just wondering how does that apply to understanding of organizational culture?
Throughout all my career in HR, from my roles in talent acquisition to be an head of people at Stark Bank and now leading recruitment efforts at People Partner, I've seen how organization culture directly impacts not only hiring but also retention, and how it can impact people, the employees' experience in general. In my early roles, I learned the importance that employees shouldn't hiring only just for skills, like technical skills, but mostly for culture fit. This means understanding the company's values, their leadership styles, and the work environment in general, and aligning all that with the candidate's mindset and expectations. So, for example, when I worked at a fast-paced company like Stark Bank, I realized how crucial it was to hire people who could thrive in innovation and fast-changing environment. Also, people who was like self-driving at the same time that could create scalable process. It was all important for the timing we were living in the company. These people would help us to build the culture of the company because that was what we were doing there. So it was very important to bring the right people to the table. So now at People Partner, all this experience guide how I talk with my clients about the importance of having this alignment about culture. So I tell my team to really know our clients, to really know how they operate, what the leadership style, how they like to communicate, what are the behavior that are expected, so we can match it with the right candidates. Sometimes they come looking for technical skills and want candidates that are just fill that boxes, but it's not that simple. We need to find people who will stay for a long time in the company. And what makes people stay for that long is more the cultural alignment than the technical fit. So
Absolutely.
it's something that I talk a lot about with my team and tell them to go with it with our clients and talk about it and really understand it deeply.
Yes, and I do think, especially in the US market, very often I speak to candidates. I also run a couple of surveys, and they always say, like, yeah, it's all about the salary, it's all about the remuneration. And yes, that's the base. Like definitely you need to feel like, you compensated in the right way, because otherwise, even if the culture is the best, you are probably not gonna stay long term within that business. But I do think that this cultural fit is more important than people understand. And I've been speaking about it a lot already on the podcast, and there are many cultural differences between all the different markets. Like we touched upon a couple of European markets, we touched upon a little bit US market, and sometimes it feels like the culture is just like this buzzword that like comes up here and there. But actually, like when you dig deeper and you try to like understand, when you ask people, when were you the happiest, what was the job where like you remember the most throughout your career, then they don't talk about the remuneration, and they don't talk about the promotions. They talk about like feeling happy, being part of the team, being appreciated. So I think that's what guides our conversations with the founders, because maybe some of the founders might not put it as the main priority straight away, but I think it's mine and your job to always like keep it as part of the hiring process, and like always emphasize the fact how crucial that is. And it shouldn't just be a buzzword, and the values should not just be hanging on the wall, but be there visible in a day-to-day things that we're doing within the business. But so I started like a little bit touching upon all those subjects that I know we wanted to discuss, but like circling back. So as someone who's been like obviously deeply involved in the HR, in external recruitment now as well, like how do you think like culture impacts the talent acquisition and retention strategies? Does that have any impact on that, in your opinion?
I believe culture plays a huge role both in talent acquisition and retention, because when you have a clear and strong organization culture, it will help to attract the right candidates, because your employer branding can make the candidates picture themselves fitting in your environment. So when I was at Stone company, my first company, which had a very strong culture and results-driven culture, and we focused on being very honest about our environment to set these kind of expectations with our employees in terms of behaviors and results in that high-performance environment. It was easy in that time because we had a very strong employer branding in Brazilian market, and it happened because people who were inside the company, they are very passionate about the company, and they talk about it with their colleagues, with their family, and it helped us build a strong employer branding, and we use it to attract the right candidates. And we know at the trainee process, we know that people who joined the process, they knew about our day-to-day basis, what we expect about our employees and how things work there. They expect a lot of learning, but a lot of work too. We make sure that we were very honest about our environment with them, and it helped us attract the right people. On retention side, if the culture aligns with employee values and they feel supported, recognized, and challenged, it was very important in most of the startups I've been working. They are more likely to stay for a very long time because they can picture themselves in the future there. What the next steps, what the next role they will play. If they want to be a specialist, that's a path. If they want to have a team, lead the team, they can be developed for it. So they feel more comfortable to stay. But actually, in one of my previous roles, I saw the impact of a good cultural fit, impact ENPS numbers, engagement numbers, and it was consequently reducing our turnover. We had a turnover metric, but it was more about maybe compensation than exactly the culture. It was good for one side, but bad about other because our culture was strong, but we still had to improve our compensation package. But
Like I think that's a tricky part because I also had like a few startups we worked with that were incredible in terms of the culture, but then the compensation was lacking, and it's always like a little bit a tough subject how to compensate. Like we had this one client who came to us and they were so convinced about their culture, how amazing they are, but then we couldn't hire anybody because they were so convinced that they're so amazing, and they probably were, but their compensation wouldn't add up to that. So they still didn't manage to have a successful hire. So I think it's a big thing to tackle.
it's a very sensitive topic. Mostly for startups that are starting the business, they have a great dream, a big dream, a great team, but they need to hire people, and they don't have the money. Maybe they even want to pay, but it's not the timing for the people in the startup to really have a great salary. But I think long-term compensations can be discussed in that case. Maybe some stock options plan, or maybe some kind of flexibility in work from home, or flexible hours, or benefits that may increase the compensation package. It's a sensitive topic, but it's very interesting how it happens in all the companies in all the countries. It's not something that only Brazil face.
Exactly. So it's more natural. So in your experience, like what would you say are kind of like the best practices integrating new hires into company cultures? So especially when they come from like diverse cultural backgrounds. Obviously, we all work in a global world. Like it's nothing special that we have, diverse teams nowadays. But what is usually like your advice that you'd give to founders on how to integrate new hires into a company's culture?
The onboarding process can start even before the person really joined the team, is doing the recruitment final stage, when you can set a clear expectation about how the company operates, what kind of environment they will face, what behaviors are expected from them, and to have this kind of honest conversation with someone before you really do the job offer. So, according to that, I think there are three practices that I really like to do, and I did in my past companies. And the first one is, it's very important for the company to share its history. So why the company was created, what problem they are solving, why they had the idea, what are the founders' history, and what drove them to that moment at the company. I think these kind of conversations help the new hires to build a connection with the founding team, the leadership team, and it will help them to understand more the basis about the company. And the second step is to clearly and objectively explain what the company's values, mission, and vision are. Like really talk exactly what they are and provide them practical examples of daily behaviors that will reflect those values in the day-to-day activities and routines. It will help them to understand how they internalize these principles, these values, and how to deal with them in the daily basis. And the third step is that it's actually a mix with the second, is to engage leaders and cultural ambassadors from the company to join the onboarding process by talking about how they live that values in their day-to-day work. So they can share like personal insights, share situation where they saw that they live that values, and the new hire can have someone to be inspired in their journey in the company, and they can discuss exactly how to increase that values in themselves, how to put it in a way that the company accepts, and they can grow, they can make it something that will develop them in the company, they will make them go to another steps in the company. So besides it all, it's very important to to have the a conversation with the directly leader, to know about the job, the routine, to meet the team, have some space to have informal conversations and build this kind of trust since the first day in the company. I think we will make them feel more comfortable to do a great job and to be very set the expectations about the culture, environment, and values in general.
Yes, I think like it's so important to have the leaders as culture ambassadors and making sure that they are the ones who can communicate and who can show what the values actually mean, like not what they are, but what they actually mean, for the teams on a daily basis. So I think having leaders on the same page as, say, the HR teams and the culture teams is very crucial. And I think those are the things where, the HR teams and us as external HR partners, if there are no in-house HR teams, because very often, I don't know about you guys, but we work also with smaller startups where there is no HR function in place. So then I feel like maybe it's our job to kind of install that habit into communicating those things with the new leaders joining the company, so then they can communicate that with the teams. So moving on to our more Brazilian Brazilian corporate culture and the international expansions topics, because definitely I would like to touch upon and speak a little bit more about the cultural differences there. I was wondering, what do you think, what are the advantages that Brazilian professionals bring to the tables when joining US companies? Of course, we know partially why in the US, hiring specialists from Brazil is so common. I think it's quite clear, and there are quite a few reasons for that. But I wonder, from your perspective, what are the advantages that they can bring to American companies specifically?
In my perspective, Brazilian professionals can bring a unique blend of adaptability, resilience, and relationship building skills that can be incredible value to US companies. As we develop our careers in a dynamic and often challenging economic environment like ours here in Brazil in the past few years from now, they tend to be highly adaptable and comfortable with navigating change. This resilience allows them to handle uncertainty and evolving demands with calm, solution-oriented approach. They are also very creative. They can find innovative solutions, even if they had limited resources. It's very common in a lot of companies here in Brazil. And they show a level of commitment with the success of their team and their projects that is very useful for our companies. So they are comfortable with this ambiguity, with a changing fast environment, so they can support the US companies in maintaining this agility, especially in environments that require quickly pivots, adaptable strategies. I think Brazilian people are very proactive, and they find a way to make things done because it's good for clients, good for the team, and they are very collaborative professionals. So I think it's one of our differentiators.
Things that make you stand out. And I'm pretty sure that's That's true. I mean, I think I mentioned to you when we had that conversation, our first conversation when we first connected, that I actually have been recruiting many Brazilians at some point, not to the US, but to Estonia. And I think they also brought like a little, I mean, not a little, a lot of like just happiness and
Good
just being a very
energy.
players and energy into teams. And I do think that it really makes such a change and such a positive impact on team to have people like that with this positive attitude and, like you said, adaptable to change, especially working in startups. Hiring people, say, from like larger American corporate environments might be a challenge to get them into a startup where things are changing. Maybe things are not like set in stone all the time, and you just need to be like, okay, like what happened today, like let's fix it kind of attitude. And I think my experience over the last, I would say, maybe 7 years working with Brazilian, mostly developers. I don't maybe have much experience with any other professionals. Mostly it was software developers, but the experience so far, it has been that there were more like those doers and people who can adapt easily and who can solve problems with a smile on their face, which of course doesn't get unnoticed as well. But what would you say are some like of the challenges when adopting to US working culture? Like obviously you work with so many Brazilians working in the US or working for American companies out from Brazil. So it would be like super interesting for me to see and hear from you, like what were some of the challenges that they faced joining American businesses.
I think the first challenge that Brazilian company often face when expand to US is balancing the Brazilian informal and relationship focused work style with more
Uh-huh.
structured and individualistic approach common in US. Brazilian workplaces tend to value more personal connections and a collaborative spirit, while US teams are generally most tax-driven and independent contributors. These contracts can sometimes lead to different interpretations of teamwork, feedbacks, and daily interactions between the teams. So, to overcome this challenge, I and stay true to their values because they are very unique here. The companies in Brazil, they can use some cultural immersion programs or team building practices that can bring both work styles together. I think both are very, they have their own strengths, and it's important to make it like,
100%.
yeah, to mix them all. So, facilitating some open discussion where teams can share expectations and adopt a flexible feedback, and they set how their communication will be and do some deals about it, can maintain the Brazilian emphasis in collaborations, and while they respect the US focus on independence. This way, Brazilian companies can sustain their unique strengths and still connection with the teams in US or another country, and bring this cultural difference as something that will make the team grow together, learn with each other, and really deliver great results because they have different skills that combined can deliver better results, better projects, and better approach with the clients. So it's really bringing the best of both worlds by discovering how the team works better together, by conversations, team building approach that won't like make anyone scared or afraid of the next steps. I think
Yeah.
they
So
can
like
build the
more
new culture
finding the
together.
balance, finding the balance and like setting clear expectations, I guess. But like to flip the coin, like on the other hand, like when Brazilian professionals are considering international opportunities, I'm sure you also just speak with candidates who are just looking for a job. So they might be looking for a new job in Brazil, but maybe they might be also looking for an opportunity in the United States or elsewhere. So what would you say for your Brazilian talent are the cultural factors that matter to them? And how do these influence their decision-making process? Do you think that those cultural aspects, say you're hiring a senior software developer, one comes to you, knocks on your door and says, Paula, I need a new job. And you ask them, like, what are you looking for culturally? Like, what are those things that you think are important to those people?
One of the most important facts that makes people look to another job or accept another job offer is career growth opportunities and compensation in general, especially in countries where with strong currencies compared to Brazil real. What it's not very unusual for Europe or US nowadays. Brazilian professional wants to also understand how the company invests in their employees in terms of learning and development, career paths, or how they can grow with the company, and how their total rewards progression can be if they deliver a great results. I think this one is what it's more attractive for Brazilians nowadays. But another thing that is very important is also work-life balance. I have the impression that people in Brazil, like mostly in startups, people work a lot of hours to make the company grow, and maybe they want to a country or a company that have more flexibility, that they can having more time with their family and personal relationships, so they can look at companies or countries that have this kind of flexibility about work hours or home office or working for anywhere. Companies in Brazil are not
Like
it's not common
accommodating.
anymore. Yeah, it's not common anymore to have home office opportunity here in Brazil. Companies are returning to the offices. Yeah, more in a hybrid way, but they are returning, and I see people in Brazil looking for opportunities in other countries so they can still work at home
Remotely.
Yeah, and I also have friends that are developers too, and they work for companies from other countries. And one thing that they say that is important from them, but it's not always common, is to have a company that is really open to international professionals. They sometimes they face teams and conversations that they feel that people are not very taking them serious or really believing and trusting that they can do a great job. These things, if the company can work it well, like this openness to international profession and have this friendly atmosphere and make it comfortable for professionals, it can be a great differential for the employees too. So
100%.
all these factors and all these facts, I think they are central to Brazilian professionals to decide to work for companies outside Brazil and not staying here.
Yeah, I think it's so important to like just still feel as you are a part of the team, like doesn't matter where you at. Like I think sometimes there's a core team in the US and there's like an outsourced team somewhere in the world, and just doesn't seem like, you know, those two are integrated. But then I know of many US companies that have, you know, outsourced teams or just parts of their teams in different locations across the world, and doesn't really matter where they at, especially when the US teams work remotely too. So I know where you're coming from. So what would you say is the advice that you'd give to, say, US-based companies that would like to hire Brazilian talent, but then also kind of like respecting the cultural differences and respecting kind of all the things that you just said that are important to them?
So as we say, we said, Brazilian professionals tend to appreciate work environment that they can build a strong and trusting connection with their colleagues in their team. So fostering this sense of community and open communication can help attract and retain Brazilian talents. Another important aspect about flexibility, especially regarding work-life balance, is to have these remote work options or flexible hours that they can make this agenda based on their personal commitments, their and other activities that they really they important for them to do. So the third one is that a lot of Brazilian professionals also value international opportunity to move or travel for another countries. I see a lot of professionals that start looking for another companies out of Brazil for a career growth opportunity that drives them to move out to Brazil. It's sad for us that our talent may be living for another country, but I see that people see it as an opportunity of their lives, like to have this international experience in their career, maybe to return sometime, but it's a great thing that people in Brazil, employees in Brazil look for another company, and it's something that the employees in US can do for them to have this opportunity if they do a good job in the company.
Yes, for sure. And like that's what I noticed too, that I think when I started working with Brazilian market a couple of years ago, I think it was just before COVID when we're hiring tons of developers in Estonia and hitting the wall. And then we realized all those Python guys are hiding in Brazil. First, I think they were a little maybe apprehensive, especially moving to the other side of the world. Like they would move to the US, but they didn't want to move maybe, all the way across to a cold country in Europe. But when the time progressed, I noticed that more and more were very open. We had all families moving and being very excited about that opportunity. So I do see that trend too, but also there are many who want to stay and just work remotely, which is completely fine. We just need to find companies that will accommodate them. So to slowly start wrapping up, I wanted to move a little bit more to like kind of your professional experiences and kind of the lessons that you have learned over those 7 years in HR and recruitment. So over your career, you've had the opportunity to work with obviously a variety of cultures and very different teams. So what would you say are like the most important lessons you have learned so far about like integrating the cultural diversity into recruitment as well, but then also team building later on?
The most crucial aspect about it is understanding and respecting the unique values and perspective each person and each country brings, and find a way to blend it with the company's culture and company's values. So to create an inclusive environment, it's essential to adapt the management style to support a diverse ways of working, allowing this difference to complement and strengthen the team, and to make sure that the management team are coming up with the best of which one in the team members. For example, when I work with a team in Mexico, I learned how meaningful it was for them, the Dia de los Muertos.
Oh, it's coming up this weekend.
Yeah, sure, it's coming. Yeah, we didn't celebrate here in Brazil the Dia de los Muertos or Halloween. It's not very traditional here,
Yeah.
but we understood how important it was for our mates in Mexico. So we adapt our internal calendar, our communication to celebrate it with them. So
Nice.
at the same time, it was a very good experience for the Brazilian team to know better the Mexican culture, how they live the day, what they celebrate, what are their customs, how they deal with death. It was a discussion that we had based on Dia de los Muertos. So in the end, it was a very good way to connect our team, the Brazilian team, to know about more about the Mexican culture, and the Mexican team see that our team in Brazil are supporting them in their beliefs.
And they
So
care and are interested.
yes, it was a festive day, but this small adaptation showed also some respect that the company had through the Mexican culture, like the country's culture, and also fostered more connection and cultural with the team members. It was a very small change, but the message I want to tell here is how this difference can connect and not separate the team. We did a celebration that we didn't have before that day, and the next year it was something that people in Brazil and Mexico was like expected to be together again, to discuss the
Yeah.
topic, is to see how people were celebrated in Mexico City. So in the end, it was a very nice way to blend our culture and to blend our team together, build more trust between them.
I love that message. And sometimes it doesn't need to be something very complicated to get people talking, because when you are in two different locations, or two different sides of the world, like maybe you're just gonna exchange some Slack messages, but you don't really know that person. And like having those little initiatives, like that's a great example of how, maybe someone who never talked would share, oh, that's what I did with my family or my friends. So then it like the relationships becomes more open and personal. So maybe then when there will be like a new issue coming up with the code, they will be more likely to just ask and knock on this door, because they're already gonna feel like there is that connection made. So I
Exactly.
really love that message. Um, so for like HR leaders, recruiters working in the global context like this, what would you say is the advice that you'd give about fostering the culture? So like kind of that would already be a part of it probably, but then also like about like embracing those cultural differences in the team. Like what would you say? Do you have any more advice that you've already shared?
The most important advice I can give is to define the company's core value and propose a clear but enough flexibility about it to allow for local culture adaptation. So, for example, companies should start with a strong foundation about these values. I mean, ensuring that this core mission and these core values is something that anyone, anywhere can connect with. So, create unity without restricting local teams to a single way of working is very important for anyone to connect with their culture.
Yeah.
Another important approach is to give employees voice so they can share how they feel about the company and they can express themselves locally. So encouraging input from diverse team members on company initiatives or team rituals like one-on-ones with the leadership team or team building activities they are all together, it can create a culture that feels more genuine and more inclusive for all. So maybe having a software, I got now talking about tools, maybe a software that facilitates anonymous feedback. So it allows the team members from all the backgrounds to vocal their personal opinion openly without being judged for it. And it makes sure that the leadership teams know how people really feel about the culture and what are the subjects that they have to discuss more. They have to
Have to
work
improve
with a
on.
little details. Yeah. And also it's important to give the leadership the right not only tools like software, but also training. So maybe a training focused on inclusive leadership workshops or regular team building activities tailored for global teams. I think it's not only about giving the right tools to the management team, but also help them to deal with the situation. Maybe they don't know, and the company needs to support them in this kind of environment. They are the representation of the culture for the team. So the company needs to look at the management team as people who also need to be developed and supported by the company. So building a strong global culture. It's something you said. It's not about having the values writing on the walls and just something that people say in big events, but it's making sure that those values are can be naturally shaped into a company's country, into according to their unique cultural context, so people can feel connected and people can feel that they belong to.
Yes, 100%. And I do think also the fact that, you know, when we have strong leaders, that's what impacts the teams, especially in larger organizations where, you know, you kind of join the team first and then the bigger organization, because you will be directly impacted by the leader who you work with. So I think it's what you said about, you know, having them on the same page and representing the company DNA, the values, and all the things that are important from the cultural perspective is really, really important.
Sure, they are like ambassador from the HR team to talk about the culture. They need to
Exactly.
be the ambassador of the culture.
They need to be, especially, you know, maybe in a smaller startup, an HR professional it's more visible. You know, when I worked in a smaller company, I was definitely more visible and I could, you know, implement those things more. But then when you are a part of a larger HR team, probably you are not the person that they see every day and who communicates all the changes first. It's gonna be their hiring manager, the direct manager that they have. So I think that's the important thing to keep in mind, and it's our job on the HR recruitment talent acquisition side to always keep in mind that we communicate it to our managers.
They are, as the management team, they are as responsible for recruitment processes as the HR, because it's their job to hire their team, like to build their team, and it's our job to find the perfect person to fill that space. So I like to do this recruitment process even today with my clients in like a forehand work. I make sure that I truly understand them and hire the right person. And after we hire someone, they are responsible for building these relationships, to development that person, and to give them opportunities to have another roles in the company, to grow there with the company, have a better compensation and stuff. It's like all hands work.
All hands work for sure, and would be great if, you know, all companies had that vision and always keep that in mind, that it's not what we kind of said at the beginning. It's not about just getting the right person on board, but also making sure they stay. And that they thrive in their teams, in their roles. So yeah, for that we need all hands on deck, like you said. All right. Well, I think this is going to be a good wrapping moment. So, thank you so much, Paula, for coming on the podcast. I know it was a little bit of prep work for you, and I really, really, really appreciate your time and all the insights that you have shared with us. For everyone who is interested in you know, hiring in Brazil or building teams, I'm definitely gonna link all Paula's details below, so I'm sure that you'd be open to answer some additional questions. But yeah, thank you so much for your time today, and I hope we can continue this conversation offline as well.
Sure, Joanna. Thank you very much for this opportunity. It was a great pleasure to be here with you, to talk with you, and to share more about my experiences and our Brazilian market with all your audience. Thank you, everyone who's listening. Please, Joanna, share my LinkedIn, my account, so people can connect and ask anything. We can talk more offline, as you said. And if anyone wants to hire great talents, you can count on People Partner, my consulting firm. It will be also a pleasure to talk about it with you, to talk business. So please be free to contact me in LinkedIn. Thank you very much. Hope you'll be in touch.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, Joanna. Thank you.
Thanks for joining me on Culture Pulse, the heartbeat of your workplace. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and found some insights to take back to your team. Don't forget to subscribe for more discussions, and for all the latest updates on the podcast, follow Magic Mondays Miami on LinkedIn. See you next time!